In this video, I want to talk about exporting your Revit data out to other file formats. Now, I'm going to do a DWG export for this example, but there are other file formats that are supported. So I'll go to the File menu and highlight Export, slide over here, and then locate CAD formats at the top. Now, I'll be choosing DWG, but as you can see, there are some other formats that are supported. Now, here in the DWG export window, we could go immediately to Next and accept all of the default settings. But what I want to do is point out a few of those settings to you in case you want to explore further. Up at the top is your Select Export Setup. Now, that's a drop-down menu, and if you've previously configured settings, you can actually save those and they'll be on the list here. How do you configure those settings? You use this icon right here, the Modify Export Setup. So I'll click that. And that displays an incredibly extensive dialog filled with potentially customizable settings. Now, I won't be changing any of the settings here, but I do want to just point out some of the more popular ones that you might encounter. Since CAD files are organized into layers, this is perhaps the most important tab here, this first tab. Notice all the categories in Revit are listed here, and then what corresponding layer and color will be used to represent that information on the AutoCAD side. Now, I'm currently using the American Institute of Architects standard to map those layers, but notice that there's a drop down here and there are other national standards that you can choose from if you wish. The next tab over is lines. So anything that's a dashed line in Revit will be mapped to some corresponding dashed line on the AutoCAD side. You can let Revit automatically generate the line type, or you can use some loaded AutoCAD line file and map it to a particular type of line. So discuss that with your CAD or BIM manager in order to get the right choices. And that is really the approach you want to take for all of these tabs. You can map the hatch patterns in Revit to corresponding hatch patterns in AutoCAD. The same thing with text and fonts. How do you want to treat the colors? If you're exporting 3D geometry in Revit, you can choose either polyface meshes or ACES solids. If you need to make any adjustments to coordinates or units, you can do that here. And then finally, on the General tab, there are some miscellaneous settings, but perhaps the most important setting in this entire dialog is which file format you want to export to. So make sure that you know which version of AutoCAD your recipient is using and choose an appropriate format from the list here. Now, I'm going to cancel and not make any changes to any of those settings. I'm going to accept all of the defaults, click Next, and then that will take me to the final window where it will ask me for a name and a target folder. So I will accept the defaults for both the name and the folder. And I do want to point out this setting right here, that by default, it will export the views and sheets separately, and the Revit links will also be exported separately. So I'll show you what that looks like in just a moment. Let's go ahead and click OK here. So if you have a copy of AutoCAD, then you're welcome to switch over there and open the result. Now, even though I exported a single view from Revit, notice that I actually got 3 DWG files. So one of these is the actual title block, the other is the architectural model, and the final one is the MEP model. So I'll go ahead and open up the architectural model and click Open here. Now, notice that all of the information came in various colors. Those correspond to the various layers that we were using in that mapping table. Now, I want to stress that none of this information is objects. These are all just individual lines and circles and other elements that are a close approximation to what they looked like. They're the correct size and scale, but AutoCAD does not support the same sort of functionality that Revit does. Now, furthermore, if we come over here to the view cube and look at this from a three-dimensional vantage point, notice that because we were working on a 2D view, everything that we exported from Revit became a flattened two-dimensional drawing. So if you want 3D information from Revit to AutoCAD, then you need to export it again from a 3D view. So let's switch back over to Revit and do that example next. So let me scroll down here and locate a 3D view. I'll open up my Axon view, go to the File menu, choose Export, CAD Formats, DWG. I'll accept all of the defaults, click Next, and click OK here on the following window. I'll switch back to AutoCAD, Open up the axonometric drawing this time. And as you can see, it now exported 3D information. However, I do want to stress once again that if I zoom in here and select some of these items, all of the individual faces of what used to be walls are now just simple polyface meshes. So when you export over, it will do its best job to create geometry that matches the size and physical location of the geometry that was exported from. But since AutoCAD doesn't have objects like we do in Revit, it's going to interpret it in the best appropriate objects that it can on the AutoCAD side.